Lieutenant Commander Daeho Kim stood inside the white room on the alien ship. His black military uniform looked small against the huge walls that seemed to glow with their own light. The room was so clean it hurt his eyes. Everything was perfectly smooth, like someone had carved it from one giant piece of white stone. He kept his hands behind his back in proper military position, even though his heart was beating fast. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries: first contact with alien life, but things were not going the way anyone had planned. The aliens called themselves the Valaks, and they were nothing like what humans had imagined in movies or books. They looked like living glass statues that walked and talked there. The bodies were see-through and light moved through them in strange patterns. When they moved, it sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The biggest Valak stood in front of Daeho. This one was clearly the leader. It was twice as tall as any human, and its crystal body had sharp edges that caught the room light. The light inside it was red now, which Daeho guessed meant it was angry or excited. 3 smaller Valaks stood behind their leader. They all watched Daeho with eyes that had many sides. Like diamonds, their heads moved in small jerky motions like they were studying every part of him. A small device on the wall began to make crackling sounds. Then words came out in perfect Korean. The translation was working. The alien leader spoke, and its voice sounded like breaking glass mixed with music. Human creature, you will show that your people bow down to the Orcs Empire. We have taken over 17 worlds by making them afraid. Your kind will be just like all the others. Daeho tried to keep his voice calm and respectful. With respect, Commander, I think humanity might surprise you. We usually prefer to talk things out peacefully. Maybe we could discuss how our peoples can work together instead of one ruling the other. The crystal alien flared brighter with angry red light that pulsed through its entire body. You do not understand your place, flesh being. This is not a discussion. This is us showing you what will happen. The leader made a gesture with one of its long crystal arms. The other aliens began moving around the room. They rolled out a machine that looked like a metal tree made of pipes and wires. The machine started making a low humming sound that made Daeho feel vibrations in his chest. Back on Earth, Dr. Sora Park sat in the Soul Space Command Center, watching everything happen on multiple screens around her. The room was dark except for the glow from dozens of monitors. Her team of scientists and military officers watched with worried faces. The screen showed Daeho standing calmly while the aliens prepared their strange machine. Other screens showed his vital signs: heart rate, blood pressure, stress hormones, and brain activity. Sir, she said to Admiral Taejin Lee, who stood behind her chair. The readings from Commander Kim show he is stressed but not panicking. His psychological profile says he actually gets curious when things get dangerous. Admiral Lee was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. He had been in the military for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. He frowned at the screens. What do you mean, curious? They are clearly getting ready to hurt him. Dr. Park pointed to one of the screens showing brain scans. That is exactly what worries me, Sir. Kim has always been different in scary situations. Most people fight or run away, but Kim seems to get interested. He wants to see what happens next. The Admiral looked at the young woman who was one of the best minds in xenobiology. Explain that to me. Dr. When Kim was a child, his sister used to hide and jump out to scare him. Most kids would cry or get angry, but Kim started looking forward to it. He liked the feeling. The excitement became fun for him. Dr. Park pulled up more files on her computer. She showed psychological tests and military records. Kim volunteers for dangerous missions. He goes skydiving and rock climbing in his free time. He watches horror movies and reads scary books for fun. Last year he signed up to test experimental space suits that had a 20% failure rate. The Admiral studied the information. This is our first contact. Representative Dr. Park nodded. Yes, sir. And based on these readings, I think the aliens are about to learn something very important about humans. The main screen, the alien machine, was getting louder. The Valaks were stepping back from it like they expected something bad to happen. Their crystal bodies were changing colors from red to a nervous yellow-green. The leader spoke again. Soon you will feel true terror. Human, your mind will break just like all the others. We have perfected the art of fear. No living thing can resist what comes next. Daeho looked at the machine with genuine interest instead of fear. Really, what exactly does it do? Is it some kind of gas weapon, or does it work on brainwaves directly? The aliens seemed confused by the question. It is concentrated fear itself, the essence of terror from creatures across the galaxy. No organic being has ever resisted its power. That sounds fascinating, Daeho said, and he meant it. How did you discover something like that? Did you study the brain chemistry of different species? What kind of delivery system does it use? The Valaks leader made a sound like glass breaking in frustration. You should be afraid. You should be begging for mercy. Instead, you ask questions like a scientist. Dr. Park leaned forward as she watched her screens. Sir, look at this. His curiosity response is actually overriding his fear response. The parts of his brain that should be screaming danger are instead lighting up like Christmas trees with interest. Admiral Lee shook his head. This is either going to be a disaster or the best thing that ever happened to humanity. The alien machine reached full power. A panel opened on its side and green mist began flowing out. The mist moved slowly like it was heavier than air. It crept across the floor toward Daeho, who stood perfectly still watching it approach. The Valaks moved further back. Their leader announced, Now you will understand why 17 worlds kneel before us. Now you will know true fear. The green mist reached Daeho and began rising around his legs, then his waist, then his chest. The aliens waited for screaming or crying or begging instead. They got something none of them expected. Ho took a slow, deep breath through his nose like he was smelling flowers in a garden. His eyes closed for just a moment, then he opened them and looked straight at the alien leader and he smiled. It was not a fake smile or a scared smile. It was the kind of smile someone makes when they taste something delicious or hear good news. It was genuine and peaceful and completely impossible. The Valak's leader stumbled backward, its crystal form shifting to a sick yellow color. Impossible, the translator crackled. The fear gas should have destroyed your mind. Increase the power. But Daeho just stood there breathing normally and smiling while green mist swirled around him like he was standing in the world's most relaxing fog on Earth. Every scientist and military officer stared at their screens in complete shock. They were watching something that should not be possible. Something that would change everything they thought they knew about fear and humans and what made their species truly dangerous. The first contact was definitely not going according to plan, but maybe that was exactly what made it perfect. The alien fear machine roared louder than before. Green mist poured out of it like a waterfall flowing upside down. The whole chamber filled with the strange gas until Daeho could barely see the crystal aliens through the thick green cloud. The Valak's leader was flashing colors that had no names, bright angry reds mixed with confused yellows and what looked like panic blues. Its voice came through the translator sounding like a storm made of broken glass. Impossible, this cannot be happening. The fear inducer has never failed, not once in 300 years of conquest. You should be on the ground screaming, you should be begging us to make it. Stop. Daeho took another slow breath and tilted his head to one side like he was trying to identify a familiar smell that is really interesting. It has this sweet undertone, kind of like the jasmine flowers my grandmother used to grow, mixed with something metallic, maybe copper or iron. The other Valak soldiers were backing away from the human as far as they could get. Their crystal bodies were shifting through colors so fast it looked like rainbow lightning was trapped inside them. One of them made a high-pitched sound that the translator could not convert to words. More power. The leader shouted at its soldiers. Maximum concentration. Nothing can resist pure terror at full strength. The machine screamed louder and pumped out even more green mist. The entire chamber was now thick with the gas. It was so dense that normal creatures would not have been able to see their own hands, but Daeho just stood there breathing normally and looking around with scientific curiosity. Oh wow, that is much better, he said with genuine enthusiasm. Now I can really smell the complexity. There are definitely floral notes in there, something like roses or maybe cherry blossoms, and there is this ozone smell like right after lightning strikes. That is fascinating chemistry. He started walking around the chamber, moving through the green mist like it was just regular air. The aliens watched in growing horror as the human examined their fear weapon with the same interest a child might show for a new toy. The leader tried one more time. Human creature, you must be feeling terror. Tell us what you feel. Describe the fear that is crushing your mind. Ho stopped walking and looked thoughtful. Well, if I am being completely honest, I feel pretty relaxed actually. This is the most calm I've felt since I left Earth. The green mist has this really soothing quality. Maybe it is the color or the way it moves, but it reminds me of being underwater in a warm poolback. On Earth, the monitoring team was going crazy. Dr. Sora Park was checking her instruments over and over again because the readings made no sense at all. Admiral Taejin Lee stood behind her watching the impossible scene on the main screen. Dr. Park, what exactly are we seeing here? The Admiral asked. His voice was steady, but his hands were gripping the back of her chair hard enough to leave marks. Sir, according to every instrument we have, Commander Kim is not just unaffected by their fear weapon, he is actually getting more relaxed. His stress hormones are dropping. His heart rate is slower than when he sleeps. His brain is showing patterns we usually see during meditation or deep relaxation. That is impossible. That is what I thought too, sir. But look at this. Dr. Park pulled up a comparison chart. These are brain scans from when he was getting ready for the mission. Elevated stress, normal, pre-combat anxiety. Now look at his current readings. The Admiral studied the charts. His brain activity is completely different. Yes, sir, the fear centers are barely active, but the curiosity and analysis centers are working overtime. He is not experiencing fear at all. He is experiencing scientific fascination. On the main screen they could see Daeho examining the alien fear machine like it was an interesting piece of art. He was pointing at different parts and asking questions that the translator was struggling to convert. This is remarkable engineering, he was saying to the increasingly panicked aliens. How do you extract fear compounds from different species? Do you have to study each race individually? Or is there some universal fear molecule that works on everyone? The Valak's leader was now flashing colors that looked like a broken rainbow. Its voice was high and desperate. No species has ever asked questions about the fear inducer. They scream, they beg, they surrender immediately. What is wrong with your kind? Wrong. Daeho laughed, and it was a sound full of genuine joy. Nothing is wrong with us, we just have a different relationship with fear than most species. I think you see, humans have been afraid of things for so long that we learned to make it fun. The alien leader repeated the word like it was poison. Yes, absolutely terrifying experiences are some of our favorite entertainment. We make movies designed to scare us. We build Machines that make us feel like we are going to die just so we can ride them for fun. We tell each other ghost stories around campfires. We pay money to walk through haunted houses where people jump out to frighten us. The Valak soldiers were making high-pitched sounds that the translator gave up trying to convert. They were huddled together in the corner of the chamber as far from the human as possible. My friend Jung Sik runs a business back in Seoul where he takes people bungee jumping. Daeho continued, jumping off bridges with just a rope tied to your feet. People pay him to experience the terror of falling to their death, and then they do it again the next weekend for fun. The alien leader was speeching, clicking sounds that came out as static through the translator. The really interesting part, Daeho said as he continued to examine their equipment, is that you have been using fear as a weapon, but humans learned something important about fear a long time ago. The more you experience it, the less power it has over you. He picked up a piece of the fear machine and turned it over in his hands. The aliens made sounds like glass breaking in a hurricane. When I was 10 years old, my older sister Yoonji used to hide under my bed and grab my ankles when I got up at night. It scared me the first few times, but after a while I started looking forward to it. The surprise became exciting instead of frightening. Darpark was frantically taking notes as she watched the transmission. Sir, I think we are witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. What? Do you mean humans might be the first species these aliens have encountered that has evolved beyond basic fear responses? We do not just survive scary situations, we seek with them out. We have turned our greatest survival instinct into a form of entertainment. On the screen, Daeho was now sitting cross-legged in the middle of the green mist, looking perfectly comfortable. The aliens were pressed against the far wall, making sounds of distress. You know what the really amazing part is, he told them. I am not even one of the brave ones back home. There are humans who climb mountains in blizzards, who dive into ocean trenches, who fly experimental aircraft that might explode. There are people who run into burning buildings to save strangers, and soldiers who charge into battles singing songs. The Valak's leader managed one more question through the static. What kind of creatures are you? Daeho smiled his warm, friendly smile. We are the kind of creatures who looked at the scariest things in our world and decided they would make good pets. We are the species that saw lightning and thought we should catch it in bottles. We looked at fire and decided to cook with it. We are humans, and we have been making friends with danger for so long that we forgot it was supposed to be scary. The fear machine finally ran out of gas and shut down. The chamber began to clear. The aliens stood frozen in terror while the humans sat peacefully in the middle of their greatest weapon, completely unaffected and asking if they wanted to compare notes on atmospheric chemistry. First contact was definitely not going the way anyone had expected. The green mist slowly cleared from the chamber, leaving behind only the sound of the Valak's aliens making distressed noises that sounded like wind chimes caught in a tornado. The fear machine sat silent and empty, having used up all its terror gas. On one human, who was now stretching his arms like he had just woken up from a pleasant nap, Daeho stood up and brushed imaginary dust off his uniform. The movement made all four aliens press themselves harder against the far wall. Their crystal bodies were flashing colors that had no translation, panic mixed with confusion and something that might have been the alien version of screaming. This is impossible, the leader said, but its voice was much quieter now. No species in the galaxy can resist concentrated fear. We have tested it on thousands of different life forms. All of them break within seconds. Daeho walked closer to the aliens, who tried to back away even further. The wall stopped them from retreating anymore. He moved with casual confidence, like he was approaching friends at a coffee shop instead of terrified alien conquerors. Well, I hate to be the one to break your perfect record, he said with a friendly smile, but humans might be a little different than the species you are used to dealing with. You see, we have this unusual relationship with fear and danger. He began examining the alien equipment scattered around the chamber, picking up devices and turning them over in his hands. The Valaks watched in horror as the human touched their advanced technology without permission. For example, when I was 8 years old, my cousin, Hyensu, dared me to spend the night in our old abandoned barn. The place was dark and full of strange sounds, and everyone said it was haunted. Most kids would have been too scared to even go inside. The alien leader found its voice again. Your point being, my point is that I did not just go inside. I brought a sleeping bag and snacks. I made it an adventure instead of being scared of the ghost stories. I started making up my own. The fear became fun, became excitement, became something I looked forward to. Daeho picked up what looked like a crystal tablet and held it up to the light, examining its internal structure. The aliens made more distressed sounds back on Earth. Dr. Sora Park was typing notes as fast as her fingers could move. Admiral Taejin Lee was pacing behind her chair, watching the screens with growing amazement. Doctor, what exactly is happening up there? The Admiral asked. Sir, I think Commander Kim is giving them a psychology lesson about human nature, and they are not liking what they are learning on the main screen. Daeho continued his casual exploration of the alien chamber. He moved like he owned the place, completely relaxed and genuinely curious about everything he saw. The thing you do not understand about humans, he said to the increasingly agitated aliens, is that we stopped treating fear as just a survival mechanism. About 50,000 years ago, we turned it into entertainment, art, sport, and even religion. Entertainment, the leader repeated like the word was poison. Oh, yes, absolutely. We create stories specifically designed to terrify people. We call them horror movies, and they are incredibly popular. We build massive machines that simulate the experience of falling to your death, and people wait in long lines to ride them. We pay good money to be scared. Deho found what looked like a weapon and examined it with scientific interest. The aliens made sounds like breaking glass mixed with whale songs. We have entire industries built around fear, he continued. Haunted houses where actors jump out to frighten visitors, extreme sports where the whole point is to do something that might kill you, books and games and movies all designed to make people feel afraid. Because we find it enjoyable. The alien leader was now a sickly yellow color with flashes of what looked like panic red. But that is insane. Fear is meant to keep creatures alive, to make them avoid danger. Exactly, Deho said with enthusiasm. That is what makes humans so interesting. We kept the survival benefits of fear, but we also learned to enjoy the experience itself. The adrenaline rush became addictive. In a good way. He set down the alien weapon and walked over to examine their communication equipment. The Valaks pressed themselves so hard against the wall that their crystal bodies were starting to crack from the pressure. My grandmother Minya used to tell me stories about my great-grandfather during the war. The whole family would gather around and she would describe battles that should have terrified everyone. Instead, we would ask for more details. We wanted to know exactly how scared he was and how he overcame it. The alien leader managed to speak again. This is not normal behavior for organic lifeforms. Normal is relative, Deho said cheerfully. What is normal for humans is that we have been dealing with fear for so long that we learned to make it our friend instead of our enemy. Arpak looked up from her notes. Sir, I am reading some very interesting data from the alien ship. Their power systems are fluctuating. Their communication arrays are sending distress signals to what looks like their entire fleet. The admiral leaned over her shoulder. How many ships are we talking about? At least 60, sir, and more are jumping into the system every few minutes. It looks like they are calling for backup back on the alien ship. Deho had found their central computer console and was studying it with obvious fascination. The aliens were making continuous high-pitched sounds, now like tea kettles that had forgotten how to stop whistling. You want to know what really makes humans dangerous, he said without looking away from their technology. It is not that we are not afraid. It is that being afraid stopped being enough to stop us. The leader tried once more to assert control. Human creature, you will cease this behavior. Immediately, Idaho turned around and gave them a look that was friendly but somehow terrifying in its complete lack of concern. Or what, you will spray more fear gas at me? That was honestly pretty relaxing. I was hoping you might have some other interesting experiments to try. The crystal aliens began making sounds that the translator could not convert. They were flashing colors that looked like a rainbow having a nervous breakdown. See, here is what you do not understand about my species, Deho said as he continued examining their equipment. We are the creatures who looked at wolves and thought they would make good pets. We saw fire and decided to cook with it. We found the most dangerous animals on our planet and turned them into entertainment. We looked at the vast emptiness of space and said, that looks like fun. Let's go exploring. The alien leader was barely able to speak. What are you? We are humans, Deho said with a smile that was both warm and absolutely terrifying, and we have been making friends with our fears for so long that we forgot they were supposed to control us. The really interesting part is that I am not even one of the brave ones back home. There are 7 billion more humans just like me, and some of them are much more curious about dangerous things than I am. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of alien distress calls being broadcast across the galaxy. Deho finished examining the alien computer console and turned his full attention back to the terrified Valaks. His expression had changed from curious scientist to something much more focused. The friendly smile remained, but now it carried that edge that made even the monitoring team back on Earth feel uncomfortably. Know what your real problem is, he said to the crystal aliens, who were still pressed against the wall making distressed sounds. You have been picking on species that are afraid of the unknown, but humans, we are the unknown. The commander tried to make its crystal form look bigger and more threatening, but the effect was ruined by the panicked colors flashing through its body. What do you mean by that? I mean you have spent so much time learning how to make other creatures afraid that you never bothered to find out what truly fearless creatures are capable of. Deho began walking around the chamber again, but now his movements were different, more predatory. Like a cat studying mice would. You like me to show you what humans do when they are not afraid? Without waiting for an answer, he began talking about human history, but not the way teachers do in schools. He spoke like someone describing a particularly interesting nature documentary. Let me tell you about my people, he said in a voice that stayed conversational but somehow made the aliens shrink further against the wall. We are the species that fought wars for 30 years straight just to prove a point. We had soldiers who ran directly at machine guns because someone told them it was impossible. The Valak's leader tried to interrupt, but Deho continued without pause. My great-grandfather Sung Min fought in a battle where his unit got surrounded on a frozen mountain for 6 days. No food, no ammunition, and temperatures cold enough to kill a person just from breathing. The enemy had them completely trapped. The aliens waited in terrified silence. You know what those soldiers did while they were slowly freezing to death and waiting to be overrun? He paused for effect. They told jokes, they sang songs about their families, they made up games to pass the time, and when the enemy finally attacked, they fought with hands so frozen they could barely with hold weapons, and they won. The crystal aliens began making new sounds that the translator labeled as extreme distress. But that is just one small example, Deho continued, his voice getting more intense. We have people who climb the highest mountains just because they are there. We have humans who dive to the bottom of the deepest oceans just to see what is down there. We build machines that barely work and ride them into space on controlled explosions just for the fun of exploring back on Earth. Dr. Sorapak was watching her instruments with growing amazement. Sir, the alien fleet is not just calling for backup anymore, they are positioning themselves in defensive formations. Admiral Taejin Lee studied the tactical display. How many ships? Now RT-7, sir, and they are all pointed away from Earth like they are getting ready to run on the alien ship. Deho had found what looked like their weapons locker and was examining their military equipment. The Valaks were making sounds like glass being crushed by giant hammers. We have mothers who will fight wild animals with their bare hands to protect their children, he continued. We have teachers who run into burning schools to save students they barely know. We have ordinary people who see strangers in danger and risk their own lives to help without even thinking about it. The alien commander managed to whisper through the translator. What kind of evolutionary madness created your species' evolution? Deho laughed, and it was not a nice sound. It was the kind of laugh that predators make right before they do something terrible. Humans did not evolve to be the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. We evolved to be the most stubborn. He picked up what was clearly an alien weapon and turned it over in his hands. Studying its design, the aliens made sounds that might have been prayers in their language. We, the species that looked at every single thing that could kill us and said, I wonder what would happen if we poked it. We saw lightning splitting the sky and figured out how to put it in bottles. We found the most poisonous plants and animals on our world and turned them into medicine and food. The weapon in his hands began to glow softly. The aliens pressed themselves so hard against the wall that stress fractures appeared in their crystal bodies. My friend Jinwoo back home has a hobby where he jumps out of perfectly good aircraft with nothing but a piece of cloth to slow his fall. He does this for fun, on weekends for relaxation. Last month he did it in a thunderstorm because someone told him it was too dangerous. Deho set the weapon down and looked directly at the alien commander. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Here is the really interesting part, he said quietly. I am not special. I am not a soldier or an explorer or an extreme sports enthusiast. I am just a regular human with a desk job who likes to read books and drink coffee, and I am probably one of the more careful, cautious members of my species. The alien leader made a sound like crystal breaking in slow motion. Back home there are 7 billion more humans just like me. Some of them are braver, some are stronger, some are smarter, some are more creative, but all of them grew up in a world where being afraid is just something that happens on Tuesday before lunch. Dai Park looked up from her screens. Sir, the alien fleet is definitely preparing to retreat. Their power systems are spinning up for jump drives. How many ships total? Now 112, sir. This might be their entire military force. And the alien ship. The Valak's commander found enough courage to ask one final question. How is your species not extinct? Deho grin was absolutely terrifying in its complete friendliness because we are too stubborn to die and too curious to stop poking things that want to kill us. Plus we have really good food and we tell excellent stories. He walked over to the chamber viewport and looked out at the stars where alien ships were visible in the distance. And we make friends really easily once you get past the whole trying to kill us with fear gas thing. You seem like pretty interesting people. I bet you have some fascinating stories about those 17 worlds you conquered. I'd love to hear about your culture sometime. The alien commander looked at its panicked soldiers, then at the human who was casually discussing friendship after demonstrating exactly why his species should never be threatened and made the only logical decision possible: retreat. It whispered through the translator, all ships retreat immediately. As alarms began blaring throughout the alien fleet, Deho waved cheerfully at the viewport. It was nice meeting you, he called out. Maybe next time we can skip the whole fear weapon thing and just have a nice conversation instead. The Valak's commander made what looked like a bow with its crystal body. The proud conqueror who had destroyed 17 civilizations was now dimmed to almost complete transparency, like a light bulb about to burn out. Human creature, what do you want from us? It asked through the translator. Its voice sounded like wind blowing through broken glass. Deho turned away from the viewport where alien ships were preparing to flee and looked genuinely surprised by the question. I do not want anything from you, but I think it might be helpful if you understood what you were dealing with before you made any big decisions about humanity. He gestured toward the empty fear gas machine that sat silent in the corner like a failed science experiment. You see, you have been using fear as a weapon because you thought all species would react to it the same way. But humans learned something very important a long time ago. The alien commander waited in terrified silence. Things that do not kill us make us stronger, Deho said, with that same friendly smile that had been terrorizing the aliens for the past hour. Every challenge, every scary situation, every near-death experience just makes us more prepared for the next one. He walked over to one of the smaller Valak soldiers who tried to shrink into the wall. You want an example? When I was 15, my friends dared me to spend a night in the old cemetery outside Seoul. Most people would be too scared to even walk through it. During the day what happened, the commander whispered. I brought a tent, camping gear, and my guitar. I turned it into a party. The ghost stories became entertainment. The scary atmosphere became exciting by morning. I was actually disappointed that nothing supernatural what had happened, because I was hoping to meet a real ghost. The alien soldiers were making continuous high-pitched sounds that the translator gave up trying to convert, but that is just normal human behavior. Deho continued, we are the species that saw the most dangerous creatures on our planet and said those would make excellent pets. We looked at natural disasters and figured out how to predict them, control them, and sometimes even cause them ourselves. Back on Earth, the monitoring room was buzzing with activity. Dr. Sora Park was coordinating with military commanders around the world as they tracked the massive alien fleet retreat at Morrow. Lee studied the tactical displays. Doctor, how many ships are leaving? All of them, sir. 115. Vessels are jumping out of the system as fast as their engines can manage. They are broadcasting what appears to be a galaxy-wide warning about Earth. What kind of warning? Dar Park pulled up the translation data, sir. They are telling every alien civilization they can contact to avoid human space at all costs. They are classifying us as a level 10 extinction threat. The Admiral raised an eyebrows. Level 10 according to their database, sir. That is the highest threat rating in their system, reserved for species that can end civilizations. It has never been used before on the alien ship. Deho was examining more of their equipment while the Valaks watched in paralyzed fascination. The human moved through their advanced technology like a child in a toy store, completely unafraid and endlessly curious. You know what the really interesting part is, he said as he studied what looked like their star charts. We are not even trying to be scary. This is just how humans are when we are relaxed and curious. The alien commander found enough courage to ask another question. How is your species not constantly at war with itself? Oh, we are, Deho said cheerfully. We fight each other all the time, but we also have this weird habit of working together when something threatens all of us. Plus we get bored with fighting the same enemies, so we keep making peace and finding new challenges. He pointed to the star charts showing the locations of the 17 worlds the Valaks had conquered. Take these civilizations you defeated. I bet they would make excellent allies once they recover. They probably have amazing technologies and cultures that humans would love to learn about. The aliens made sounds like wind chimes, having nightmares. See, that is the difference between humans and conquerors like you. We do not want to rule other species. We want to be friends with them. We want to trade stories and food and ideas. We want to learn from each other. But what if they refuse to be friends? The commander, Eskediho, shrugged. Then we leave them alone. Human history is full of people who did not want to be friends with us at first. Most of them came around eventually. The ones who did not, we just avoided until they changed their minds. He walked back to the viewport where the last few alien ships were disappearing into hyperspace. The chamber was now almost empty except for Deho and for terrified crystal beings. The commander managed one final question. What happens now? Now, Deho said with genuine enthusiasm, I go back home and tell everyone about this amazing first contact experience. The scientists are going to be so excited about your fear gas technology. I bet they can figure out how to reverse it and make something that helps people feel braver. The aliens made sounds of pure horror. Do not worry, he added quickly. We would never use it as a weapon. That would be terrible. We would probably turn it into therapy for people with anxiety, or maybe use it to help astronauts feel more confident during dangerous missions. The Valak's commander looked at its soldiers, then back at the human who was casually discussing turning their ultimate weapon into medical treatment. Human creature, it said quietly, your species terrifies us more than anything we have ever encountered. I know, Deho said sympathetically, and I am really sorry about that. We honestly were not trying to be scary. We were just trying to be friendly. But I understand that our version of friendly might be a little intense for species that use fear as their main tool. He walked over to the aliens who flinched away from his approach. But here is something that might make you feel better. Humans are really good at making friends, even with people who started out as enemies. My great-grandmother always said that the best friendships begin with the biggest misunderstandings. The alien commander stared at him. What are you suggesting? Well, you have my contact information from the diplomatic channels. Maybe, after you have had some time to process all this, we could try meeting again without the fear gas this time. We could just talk about our cultures, share some food, tell stories. He grinned that terrifyingly friendly grin. I make excellent kimchi and I would love to hear about what crystal beings eat. Plus I have about 1,000,000 questions about how your fear technology works. As the last alien ship jumped away from Earth, the Valak's commander realized that humanity had not conquered them through violence or threats. They had been defeated by something far more dangerous than any weapon they had encountered, a species that turned their greatest fear into curiosity, their ultimate weapon into a conversation starter, and their moment of victory into the beginning of a friendship. The galaxy would never be the same.